Hello, welcome into episode 29 of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna Bialik, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And today we have a very special episode. We have Mr. Dan Deist with Top to Bottom Services. This has been a long time in the making, so we're very excited to have you on to talk all about the home inspection side of real estate. So welcome to the show, Dan.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm excited really much. I know that you and I met at a class, and we were already talking about great stuff there, and I'm familiar with both in the investment sides, commercial, the whole nine yards. So I think it's going to be a really great episode today.
Yeah, and we're very excited to tap into your expertise, but do you mind sharing with the audience a little bit of your background and how you got involved in the real estate industry, and then give us a little bit of background of how you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been around real estate a long time. My mother was a real estate agent that I forgot to mention before for like 35 years. So it's like I used to go when she used to still cook at the open houses. So those days, I don't even know if you guys even know that was a thing, right? So I was around that a long time. But really how I got onto this home inspection was really just a luck of an office visit. And what I mean by that was at the time I was employed by a company called Fiserv. It's Fiserv. It's a clearing firm for the stock market. And I was director of operations for Fiserv Securities, and we were based. My office was out of Gaithersburg, and we dealt with the stock exchange and all these great stuff like that. And right at that time, when Charles Schwab and E-Trade were really venturing off of just the auto side of it, like placing trades via phone, and really going to this thing called the internet, and they said, "Hey, we're going to try to take all these trades online." And I was asked to kind of help spearhead our approach to combating them in the market space. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to move. I was wondering, flip-flopping back and forth. And I happened to be in a dentist's office over in the Kentlands. And I was reading an entrepreneur magazine, and it said up-and-coming businesses, home inspections. And I thought to myself, well, with my operational background, if I could somehow systematize how people go through a house and how they look at things and how they report things, and all the way from driveway scripting all the way through the delivery of the product. If I could package that where I could replicate it, I could grow it. And so I went to my wife and I said, "Hey, I'm not going to take that job in Philadelphia." I had to throw a can of water on her to wake her up after she fell and hit her head, fainting. But no, seriousness, she's amazing. And she was like, "If you're going to do it, go all in. Don't tippy toe. And so let's try to see if this works." And here we are. Literally last month, 2 months ago, September was 2 decades, 20 years in this space. And since then, I've started many other companies that have all been successful. You hear people going out of business before that 5-year thing. All of mine have exceeded past that. And I've just been really fortunate to be working with some really great people that really think outside the box and help us deliver great resources.
2 decades. You hear 2 decades and you realize how it, the real estate industry has changed since when you probably started.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it was when we first started doing that, there was this, people like radon and mold, it was all like a myth, right? It was kind of, and our reports were all handwritten reports and stuff. And now if you're not using infrared technology, scanning you and all this kind of fun stuff, you're out of the play, right? So from drones now to all this other stuff, it's completely different. And what the demand is being asked for, like investors are looking for specific things, like some very tailored in many cases. They don't need what your guests and the people listening are thinking of a traditional home inspection. Some don't want that at all. They just want to know, hey, how's the foundation look? How are the main systems? I don't need to know about a loose outlet. I need to know what is going to affect my ability to either build and retain this property or flip it. So it's a different beast. And those conversations were not really being had 20 years ago or 15 years ago. So it's exciting to see where the market is going to.
And Dan, when I sat in on your training last week, you gave a story about how this industry actually came about, and
Yeah.
I think it's a very fascinating story. You mind sharing, their origins of how the home inspection industry got started?
Yeah. It's funny because, a lot of times when you talk to people about how something got started, there's either no clue or they just make an assumption, right? And when I ask realtors a lot of times, like, how did the home inspection industry get started? They're kind of like, I don't know, Uncle Bob in a pickup truck needed to look at a house. Or they don't understand where it all came from. Well, it came from a case out of California where a realtor had listed a property and the buying agent came in and is a real estate professional. And that's a little foreshadowing of the word professional and how this affects everybody in this whole triangle of trust, the realtor, the buyer, and the home inspector. Well, she represented herself as a professional, which you all are. And after the person moved in, the house started settling off of the hill, right? And when it started settling, falling off, they brought in structural engineers and everything, and they said that this house is a disaster. It's going to have to be knocked down and rebuilt. It was not constructed properly for the placement. So everyone got sued. The seller was sued by the purchaser, and the realtor was. And in this case, the judge found in the case of the plaintiff, stating that the realtor represented herself as a real estate professional. And by being a real estate professional, implied that she is understanding of all things real estate. And one would be the physical condition and foundation of a property. And NAR got a hold of that, and they said, well, this is scary because now I have all these realtors that are potentially exposed to this thing because they're going out and they're selling these houses, and they know contracts, they know neighborhoods, they know all this, but they don't know homes. So they're not a true professional. That's why the home inspection industry, you'll see them, they say, we're generalists. They don't call us as a licensed professional. We're generalists, right? So that was the catalyst to start the home inspection industry, is because we were able to then take the liability off the shoulders of the realtor and put it on to this new fledgling industry called home inspections. And that's how it got started.
Well, thank you for keeping us out of the courtroom.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, leave that to us. Thankfully, in 20 years, our company has never been sanctioned to be in a court case against us at all. Now, we've represented many people in court that have hired us for our ability to assess things, but thankfully never sued ourselves.
All right. So I know there's some standard things that are done in a home inspection. And so we know a lot of those are. The agents listening would know what those are. And you mentioned a little bit about it earlier, like as an investor, like what are the biggest differences you would say between an inspection for an investor versus an inspection for a homeowner that's going to move into the house? Like when someone calls you up and says, I want to do this, what are the biggest differences?
Well, when you're getting a buyer who's looking to purchase a house, let it be the first time buyer, that's a little bit of a different hand holding experience, but it's the same idea. So you have mom and dad moving up to a larger house, or grandpa's doing whatever, or a first time buyer. Essentially what they want, I would call it like a Carfax for their house, right? When you're buying a used car, you're like, well, let me see the Carfax. How many accidents has it been in? How many owners has it had? You want to gather as much information to make a well-rounded decision on, do I buy this vehicle? Well, when you're doing that for a first-time buyer or those regular traditional sales, Anna, that you were talking about, they're looking for that. They're looking, okay, give me an idea on what is a safety issue in my house. Like, give me a bucket of safety. Give me a bucket of like maintenance kind of things. Like, what do I got to do to maintain this house? So I got my safety stuff, and then I got the maintenance kind of stuff. And then I want to just have an idea over here of like what future enhancements, expenses I might incur. Okay, so I do an inspection. You got a loose handrail. You got some reverse polarity. Maybe the HVAC system's been neglected. They could take all that information, and then either, if it's a informational only, they can just take that and retain it for themselves and make a well decision, or maybe the contract allows for some negotiations, and then that's when that dialogue begins.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to investors, newer investors don't know any different. So they're like, give me a home inspection, right? So they we say, hey, the grading is bad, the trees overhanging the gutters, the gutters are full. The seasoned ones, or more comfortable even, investors, they want to know, okay, give me an idea on how long these things will last in their current state. How long do I think I have with the HVAC system? How long do I actually have with the roof, the main systems of the house? And those are typically falling into your water heater, your air conditioner, the heating system, the roof, the foundation. They'll take some consideration into appliances, but not that much, because they know that those appliances will look better if we just flip this thing and we just go to Lowe's or Home Depot and just do a quick, makeup on the kitchen. So they don't really worry about that. Whereas the other buyer that we were discussing before, the traditional sale, they'd be like, all right, let me tell you about that. The thing that's really interesting, and what you were saying, like most agents will know, what gets done. It's another eye opener for me when I do a continued education credit class, and I'll ask the audience there of agents, what are some of the things that are not required to have been inspected, but if we didn't inspect them and something was found wrong, your buyer would come to you and say, why did you recommend top to bottom services? They didn't look at blank, right? And it's eye opener some, because when you think about it, it's the clothes washers, it's the dryers, it's the refrigerator, it's the oil tank. These things are not required in certain jurisdictions and even in state to be looked at. But if you moved in and your dryer didn't work, they'd be calling you and going like, hey, top to bottom really dropped the ball on this. The dryer doesn't work, right? And you're like, well, those things don't always convey. But that's really your delineation between the traditional home inspection. They want that whole Carfax thing. They want everything from a loose handrail to the roof needs replaced. And then the investors are looking for something quicker, and the price points are much different, right? Yep. So because you're paying for the inspector's time. So if she's doing a standard home inspection, it might be a 2,000, 2,500 square foot house, might be about 3 hours, about $600. Whereas these investors, they might come in there and say, hey, I just need this, right? I don't need all these other things, and just give me that, and that price point could bring it down, to a 250, 300, something like that. Because there's also not much risk there for either parties involved, the inspector or the agent on that one, when it comes to an investor.
Okay, so is the investor report more like a walk and talk? Do you provide a written report, even though it's
short? It would be a written one, and thank you for bringing up walk and talk, which I think we definitely need to broach that subject, because the investor one is always a written one, because they got multiple properties going on. The walk and talk won't work because they won't be able to retain it. They got, were you talking about the one on Maple, or were you talking about the one on this over here? So there's definitely a report that goes with that. The walk and talk cannot have a report. The state says that if you inspect 5 or more things, or you provide some type of written documentation, it is now classified as a home inspection, and you can't do a partial home inspection. It's either you're doing a home inspection or you're not, right? So the walk and talk here's the thing that people get confused sometimes, is the walk and talk is supposed to be, and that's in air quotes, self-guided. Mm-hmm. Meaning, if Anna brings buyer Jeremy and says, hey, we're doing a walk and talk, top to bottom says to Jeremy, okay, Jeremy, what do you want to look at today? And then Jeremy generally says something very broad. He'll say, well, the foundation is really important to me. And okay, what else? Or Jeremy does more what traditionally happens, is they say, well, I don't really know. You're the person. What do you think? So we can suggest. So what we do is we say, well, I will tell you, these are the other things that people typically look at. Yeah. And that is a walk and talk. And there's no photography. There's no images provided. There's no at the end a big synopsis or anything like that. It's just hands in pockets, no tools. We're not even allowed to open up anything. home inspection, you're taking the electrical panel off the wall, cover, you're not doing any of that. Now, you're not supposed to be doing any of that. I'm sure there's some times that you'll see the inspector kind of look over their shoulder and go like, well, no one's here. Let me go ahead and look into there, right? But they're not supposed to.
For the audience, Dan, a walk and talk is basically, a pre-inspection to make your offer more appealing to the seller. It's essentially you're doing an inspection with an inspector and walking and talking about it, basically. So when you write your offer, it's not contingent on a home inspection, and talking about, we all live in the DMV and we're all trying to get creative ways to get competitive, because it is a competitive market. And just going off of that, what do you say to people that are flat out just waiving it because there's 10 offers, they're waiving their home inspection just to try and get into a home because it's so hard to win in these multiple offer situations?
Well, first of all, I feel for them, because it's a reality, right? It's not like this, it's not encouraged by the realtor. The realtor is not like, hey, let's just make my life easier. That's not the dialogue. What the dialogue is saying is what you just said. It's a crazy market. There's 3 houses in the entire neighborhood, and we got to go in there as clean as humanly possible, right? So I understand it, but what I will tell you that from the buyer's perspective, it's very unnerving, right? As a business owner, when I look at doing a home inspection, I measure in there in our pricing. We say, okay, what's the cost to pay the inspector? What's our insurance? What's the profitability? What the margins we want to get? There's a whole business sense around this. It's not like we're just one guy to pick up, right? And then when you do, and there's certain things we can protect people with when we do the full home inspection. Well, when we do the walk and talk, sometimes it's hard for the buyer to really understand and appreciate that this is not an inspection. And when you move in and you find a railing or you find an animal burrow underneath your deck, that's not something that you're going to be able to call the inspector and say, you missed this. It's not even in the realm. And what we have found is a lot of these buyers, obviously they're wrapped up in the euphoria of this whole process, right? From the shopping for the house and the looking at the houses, and they're all back and they're all excited, and then so they kind of forget about all this stuff, and then it goes after the home inspection, they move in and go, wow, what did I got? What did I buy, right? So when it comes to buyers having that, I would strongly suggest that they do a post-settlement inspection. I have no reason why they wouldn't do it. Now, the other than it's an expense now, I've just swallowed hard to try to get into this house. Now you want me to come up with $500. But I'll tell you that, regrettably, there's a lot of people, service technicians in different fields, that are compensated based on commission sales. So there could be a situation where you have a buyer bought a house, waived the inspection, they now have somebody come in, and they could have just been, not actually a malice approach from maybe, we'll just use HVAC, for example. Mm-hmm. It's not like an HVAC technician, every one of them is coming in and going, I got an opportunity to get this guy, right? That's not the case. In some cases, they will, trying to do the best service, they might misdiagnose something or missuggest something. So it's not just the ones that are trying to upsell because they're there now and they're like, hey, this is an older unit. You really should get this one new. Did you get a home inspection? Oh, you didn't? Oh, wow. This probably would have come up. And now you start creating this doubt, and the buyers are like, oh my God, what did I get into? This is like disaster, right? So you have that one. And then you also have the ones where I was explaining to you before we went live on here, where we had a client that she thought she was just doing something good for her newborn by having her air ducts cleaned, and $10,000 later, $10,000, not like $100, $10,000 to get her. And I even went to that company's website, and they even say what they do. There's just a test for mold. They didn't test. They didn't do anything. So she just was sold. She was scared into doing something. So what I always say is, listen, let us come back in and do an inspection. We have no skin in the game. I'm not going to be like, hey, by the way, and I got a tool belt right over here, and I can fix that deck. That's not happening, right? But what we can do is we can say, and we can protect the buying agent, because sometimes these ones will go out and be like, oh my God, I can't believe Ana didn't tell me this. right? And we're like, last time I checked, she's a realtor you're referring to, right? Oh, okay, great, because this is a home inspector. So she was hired to find you a property that met your needs, that was in your desirable area at a fee that you wanted to pay. She was not all those and let me get in your crawl space.
Yeah.
Or find out if you're. So what we do is we take all that angst away so that Anna doesn't get a call later and go, I'm never going to refer you ever because you should have known better and you told me not to get a home inspection. In reality, she probably said, you really need a home inspection, but we can't do it, right? But they're only going to remember the pain, right?
Yeah.
So, what we would recommend is at settlement, you slide a piece of paper over to them and go, hey, by the way, call this company as soon as you move in, get them to come in and inspect it. It's $500-$600. It's money well spent because that $500-$600, they can tell you what contractors you need that are reputable. They're going to be able to help you out, or they're going to make sure to protect you against buying something $10,000 worth of mold duckling.
Wow.
Yeah, I know I've definitely had folks that waive the home inspection, but at least on the Virginia side, we have a place in our contract where we can still put it's waived, but we still want access to the property because I still encourage the clients to have the home inspection done as a punch list for when they get into the house.
Oh yeah, 100%. And now there's technologies out there too that we have aligned ourselves with, like with Home Binder Assistant and Home Binder, it's product itself, and Repair Pricer, where it's a real great tool. And you've missed all these things, So I often say that, like, I'm at that age right now. As you can see, I'm pretty gray, right? I got to go to those annual blood tests. I got to go do all the testing because I'm getting old, But I go to the doctor because I want to know, am I going to get anything? I'm kind of hoping the doctor's going to say no. And I don't ask the doctor, say, oh, since you didn't find anything wrong, can I have my feedback? It's like, so have the inspection done. And if there's nothing done, high five, man. If there's nothing wrong, man, that's freaking great. But if there's a couple things that you need to do, we can sit down at the kitchen table and go, all right, this is who you should work with. This is what you should do. And it's just it's a beautiful thing because home ownership is a blessing, and it's an amazing opportunity to build individual wealth, kind of like the people doing the investing. So I love working with the investors because it's a great way for them to build some type of revenue stream that can be almost like a passive idea there, but then they could also just set up a routine like selling it, having us come in and check it right before they sell. There's a lot of great opportunities there, but doing a post-settlement inspection is by far money well spent.
So Dan, you mentioned that seasoned buyers, seasoned investors kind of know what they're looking for, and they can reach out to you to have specific inspections. And
Yep.
the traditional home buyer will get you just mentioned like $500, $600 for the full scope. But I know there's a ton of different types of home inspections and add-ons that you can do. You mind sharing, like, I know it's a big list, but
It is a big list.
Specialties and what people are doing now for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is a big list. And like I said, when I first started this, I was like reading that Entrepreneur magazine. I'm like, home inspections. It wasn't, home inspections and sewer camera and chimney and lead and asbestos and mold and mildew and VOCs, volatile organic, all those things all started coming later. So now, because of the power of the internet, I always tell people, especially on the real estate, when I'm coaching them, real estate agents, I'm like, if someone comes to Anna and says, Anna, should I get radon testing done? I'm telling you, I bet you I could be 10 out of 10 times that when Anna is asked something, that buyer or that seller has already researched it, has grown some type of an opinion of it, and now we're just looking to see if Anna agrees. So if Anna says, no, you're in a townhouse, you don't really need to have radon, or she says, no, you're a second floor apartment, you don't need radon, or you're a walkout basement, you don't need radon, all of those are inappropriate answers because they're all wrong based on the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, who says test in apartments up to 3 stories. So it's like you have to know all these additional services that can be done, right, that can help you in the long run. So to answer your specific question, they have everything from gas testing like natural gas leak testing, which is a big one. People go into houses, they put sulfur in there so you can kind of smell it, but these detectors can pick it up at a really low percent, so we can get it before it's a big problem. Mold testing has been really big, and I tell you, it used to be, I love where real estate agents are going now, is because they realize there's resources out there to solve problems that are not exponentially large and heavy anymore or expensive. Used to be when you got radon, you're like, oh my God, don't do radon testing because it's going to be like $4,000 to remediate this thing. Well, now you can remediate for like $500, $600, $700, because the market bears it, right? So if you have a lot of people testing, a lot of remediation needs, it draws down the fee, right? Same thing with mold. Now everyone's talking about mold testing. Well, it used to be mold testing. You guys all go in there. You got your investor teams that are listening to this podcast, and they go into a basement, and they see the basement's been cut 3 stories. They're like, huh, must have been really high shag carpet in here. Or, but those days are over too. Like, you only need to replace substrates now when they're compromised. So there's products out there where you see some funky mold on the wall or something, you can spray it with an enzyme that goes right through the sheetrock and kills the mold behind the wall. So it's like there's so many great tools. I think what you really got to do is you got to talk to your investors and real estate people in general and just buyers and go, what are you concerned about? Then they say, well, my son or my daughter has an immune deficiency. Great. We should probably do some VOC testing, or we should do some mold testing, because now it's available to us now. Oh, wow. Really? Yeah, let's do that. Well, what else are you concerned about? Well, this thing's got this, this house is from the 70s or 80s, and I don't know when the last time the sewer line was scoped. Well, you know what? There's submersible cameras now. Let's just have our inspection company send the camera underwater through that waste and find out if we have any bellies in the lines or cracks. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like now when you're just like, I would like to see they have this. You go on Etsy and something's available to you now. It's like, Oh, there's a puppy that actually speaks Spanish. It's like, what? So it's like there's so much stuff that's available now. You should just be curious. I always tell my clients, just be curious. If you think about it, let me know. It might be there. It's like lead testing. Sure, it's available now. People used to say lead paint. It's actually lead finishes. You go in these historical homes in Baltimore and D.C., it's the finish on the handrail, the finish on the floors. It's not just the paint. So get curious, and if Etsy doesn't have it, your inspector probably does.
Dan, just going off of that, there's so many different inspections and so many different avenues you can go. And, Anna and I are both real estate agents, and we work with buyers. And you had a great presentation talking about setting expectations with your buyers for these type of inspections. Mm-hmm. You mind going into, as a buyer's agent, or just, talking to a buyer specifically, what they can expect, what is included in a home inspection?
Sure.
The time frame.
Yeah.
What will be given to them after the home inspection? Yeah.
Let's start from scheduling. So typically, scheduling now, you can do it online. Most inspection companies that are worth a grain of salt have online scheduling or after-hour scheduling. And you should tell your client that it's going to be typically based on the style of the home, condominium, townhouse, or single family, total square footage, right? Including unfinished basements. That's how, and sometimes age, because if you have an older home, has balloon framing, sometimes these old historical homes a little bit more. So you should be telling them that it's not going to be one price fits all. So I know a lot of realtors go, oh, it's going to be about $500. I don't quote anyone else's compensation. I don't say, well, the realtor's probably going to charge you this much. It's like, that's not my place. So I would really encourage them not to do that. You could throw a ballpark if you had to, but everybody's different, right? So it's type of home, square footage, total square footage, and the actual age. Then I would tell everybody it goes and be anticipating 2.5 to 3 hours. And I'll say that for a standard home, like 3,000, 2,500, 3,000. And I always say, if you're finished before 2.5 hours, the real estate agent's probably thinking you're rushing through the house, right? But if you're at 3 hours or longer, they're no longer thinking you're being very meticulous. They think you don't know what the hell you're doing. So it's like you got this sweet spot of 2.5 to 3 hours. Faster than that, you're rushing to get the heck out of there. Longer than that, you don't know what you're doing. So I always tell them to be in that window there. And then also, believe it or not, there were still some people out there that were giving handwritten reports. One guy I know just retired. Well, you should tell your buyers what to expect. What's the end product? What's that end product look like? Well, that end product is going to be a report that's going to have a summary in it. It's going to have some photos in it. It's going to be digital. And you should know as as the buyer agent. Anna probably knows the person they work with all the time. Nico, you know us. We're more of a narrative style report. We're more of a let me tell you the story about the product, about the house, more than just this is wrong. You really want to be what they call charge neutral. So you can tell your buyers that the inspector is going to be charge neutral, meaning that they're not going to be overly positive, going like, oh my God, house is amazing. There's nothing wrong with this house. It's the best thing ever. Like way over the top. Or you don't want to be overly negative, going like, man, I mean, if you want to buy this, your kid's probably going to die on Thursday. But, it's like, so it's like, it can be really nice. We got to be charge neutral, right? You got to be like right in the middle there where you're giving them some good information and you're also letting them know that there is some concerns. So you let them know about that too. And then I would encourage them to always attend, because I coach my team. I say, listen, if Anna is the buyer and I'm explaining something to her and I start to see that her face is starting to go flush and her smile is going away, is because what I just said about that aluminum wiring is likely scaring her. If I was there, I could say, well, let me explain to you, like when you go to Home Depot right now and you buy a light switch thing, you'll see that there's some are more expensive than others, and that's just because this one over here is aluminum and copper. This one over here is just copper only, so it's a little less expensive, so you can just buy a better switch. You don't have to rip all the aluminum wire out of the house if I'm there explaining it to her. But if she's at home reading it with her significant other, and then she's reading that, she's like, oh my God, this is the, and then she gets online and searches aluminum wire, and she's like, I'm gonna die, It's like, so it be there. I would always encourage them to be there, and then also know what the report is not there. The home inspection is not there as a way to renegotiate the asking price of a property, right? It's like, you can't go to like, oh wow, the house didn't really have anything really coming up, so I think what I'll do is I'll ask for less money, or I'll whatever. It's like, it's not that. It's also not intended for a means of escape from your obligation of purchasing this property. And meaning that you go there and go, oh my God, there's aluminum wire, I'm going to get out of this contract. It's not really the intent. You should let your buyers know that that's not really the intent. And I really want the buyer agents and the listing agents to be very communicative, because what we have learned over 20 years is some people not typically, really wrong word for what I'm about to say. What some buyers will do is they may use it because they'll go buy the house off hours and maybe see a neighbor, maybe see something else going on, and they're like, well, I don't want to live there now, right? And then so what they do is they come back and they go, we're not buying this house. And the buyer agent goes, well, we can't get out of it. Say, well, I'm just going to use the home inspection report. And then the listing agent goes, why did you bring this buyer? And there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with the house. And it's a static there. In reality, the person doesn't want that house because either they didn't like the school district or they didn't like the look of the neighbor. Right. And if you don't have that conversation first, then that listing agent is going to remember that Nico always brings these buyers, and I'm not even going to accept his offer next time because I'm tired of playing the game. Right. Yeah. So that's why I always coach people up. And when I'm coaching realtors, I'm like, you know who the great listing agents are, and you know who the great buyer agents are. And they will marry one another. They will get the job done. And if you have a bad reputation of poor listing management, like not prepping your houses properly for sale, that buyer agent's not going to go there anymore. They'll be like, oh, that's from them. And they'll figure out a way to steer their buyer to another property, right? It's just a fact.
Yeah.
So I would tell them 2.5 hours, schedule online. The end product is a digital report. Some things are going to be inspected, some things are not. Here is the standards of practice, and you can go from there.
What about then on the flip side? So either the listing agent, or if you're an investor planning to sell your home, what could they expect? And I think you brought up a good point of what inspectors are going to need access to when they're looking at these homes, right?
Yeah. So when I'm a big proponent of pre-listing inspections. If you're going to sell your house, have it inspected, right? And there has always been this narrative of, well, don't do it because then you have to disclose it. right? So the listing agent goes, oh, I don't, I'm the monkey, like, I don't want to see it and I don't want to hear it, right? But in reality it's the big things that are going to kill a deal. It's not the loose hand railing, it's not the bush that's touching the house. It's the fact that the roof is missing. Like, it's the big thing. So if you can figure out those big things out first and figure out if you can get them fixed at a reasonable price at your own negotiations, right? Because Anna brings a buyer in and the house needs a new roof. She's going to say, I want 50 grand. She doesn't know what she wants to protect her buyer. She's like, I want $50,000 for that roof. Nico has already had a pre-listing inspection and knew the roof needed replaced and provided Anna with 3 estimates.
Yep.
And they were from 20 to 25,000. And we said, and by the way, here are the comps in the neighborhood. I already priced my house down, assuming you're going to put a $2,500 roof on here. So don't actually ask me to negotiate that roof.
Yep.
That's power, right? That's power, right? So it's like doing the pre-listing is so much better, especially for investors too, because sometimes the investors, they'll have the house staged and stuff like that. And now a lot of buyers are becoming a little more aware of flips gone wrong, the term makeup on the pig kind of thing. But if they were to do a pre-listing inspection and say, listen, I am a quality person that flips houses and I've already inspected it, and now this is what you got. God, I mean, you go to a house that has been pre-listed, inspected, and a house that's not. Where would you, if you had a limited buying power? I'd be like, well, I might as well go over here. It's already been checked. I got the Carfax.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like it's such a win-win for everybody, especially on the investor side.
Dan, what do they need access to? I think you mentioned like the electrical panel and things like that.
Yeah.
that they'll need.
Yeah, good listing agents should make sure they walk before the property goes on the home inspection market, right? We're going to come in on Thursday, right, for the home inspection. He or she should have gone into the house and said, where's the attic accents? Okay, here's the attic. Okay, great. You're going to have to move all these suits out of the way because they're going to put their ladder right here. You don't want all that debris coming out. I need to make sure. Where is your electrical panel? So the attic, where's your electrical panel? Show me. You walk in there and go, hey, you're going to have to move the Corvette from the garage because they got to get to this panel in here, right? So get the car out of here, right? Then you're going to say, hey, where is the main water shutoff valve? You go down to the basement and you open it up, and that's where all the crud is, all the mops, everything is like thrown in there. And you're like, I need you to take all that out of here because they're going to need to look at that main water meter and the gas meter and all those things. They need access to that kind of stuff so they can do a good inspection. Because what I will tell you, this happens every single time with limited exception. When there is a room you can't get into because the dog is there, like they put Miffy in the room, and then there's a sign, don't open the dog. Well, what's the buyer think? They think that's the one that's got the dead body in it. That's the one that I knew the seller was hiding something. It's got to be in that room. It's like, and now everybody's got to come back to that one. You open it up, and it was just Miffy. It's like there was nothing, But now we got this angst because I couldn't get to something.
Yeah.
If I can't, we had one where we couldn't, the access panel for the electrical panel had been painted and had been caulked, right? So you could open up the tripter breakers.
But you couldn't remove the actual panel.
Remove it. Right. So now we got to call the listing agent. The listing agent has to call the seller going, can they use a knife? Then we got to be like really nice with the knife. And if we scrap it, then they're like, oh my God, he went at it with like Edward Scissorhands or something. It's like, if we try to be as neat, but if you could go there as the listing agent and say, you need to trim all this up because they're taking this thing off. And if we don't do this, they're going to think there's an electrical problem.
Yeah. And
then they're going to hire an electrician to come out here, and this opens a whole nother can of worms. So let's just make sure I have access to all the main systems, including the attics and the crawl spaces and all that kind of stuff.
Can you tell us, so it's probably a shorter list, what's not included in a standard home inspection?
It is a shorter list. Well, a couple things you should know is that walking roofs are not required. That's not required. So if you have a buyer who says, oh, I hope they walk the roof, say, well, some inspectors do, some don't. That's not required. Getting into attics is not required. All they got to do is look in the scuttle, right? They don't have to get up in there. They don't have to go into a crawl space. That's a judgment call. They think it's unsafe. Those things that should be managed to the expectation of the buyers. But then, like I was saying before, the clothes washers, the dryers, the refrigerators, any appliances on top of a counter, like the microwave that's on top of the counter. Those things are not included in a home inspection. Also, one thing that they don't understand too is that home inspections are a snapshot in time. And we've all had this problem where we get in the car and we've been driving that car for years and never had a problem. One day you turn the car on and it says check engine light. You didn't do anything different the day before you drove that car. The light came on. So now you have a home inspection. They move in a week later. It doesn't work. They're like, the inspector missed it. It's like, no, the engine light came on, right? So it's like, it's a snapshot in time. Now, if the inspector completely missed the fact that it has no roof, that's slightly different. But to your point, Anna, it's like the inspector doesn't have to do calibrations. So it's like the HVAC worked because the unscrupulous seller pumped it with Freon or coolant before they had their HVAC guy come out. That's why we always ask, if we don't see any stickers on anything for servicing, we say, hey, ask if they've had it serviced. And if they did have it serviced, ask for the record.
Yep.
Because if the seller just goes, yeah, I had it serviced, and you accept that as gospel, well, it could have been on that service record. It could have said, yeah, I serviced it and it's low on coolant and I put coolant in it. Now it's borrowed time, right? Now they make it through the winter and then go into summer and the thing's not working. Mm-hmm. Right. And so it's like, ask for documentation, and that's one of the benefits of having a home inspection too, is in the report we can ask for that. That's what I was teaching at the CE class, where I was saying ask for those things, because the home inspection is a tool that should be used to ask for additional information, supportive information.
What about detached structures? Like, I've heard mixed answers, like if it's a detached garage or a large shed, is that included as part of the home inspection? Because I've heard it both ways from it.
Yeah, great question, actually, and one that I think that doesn't get the attention that it deserves. Now, if you're in areas where you, like the Leesburg, Virginia, where they have these townhouses, or like the Kentlands, we have the townhouses, you have that short little grass area that's about 6 feet, and then you got the detached garage. Most inspectors are going to count that as one unit. But if they have a single-family home and then there's a 2-car detached garage that's been added after, like there's a garage already included in the standalone home, and then there's a 2-car over there, they're generally going to ask for more money to do that. And the reason for it, again, is it goes down to type of home, square footage, because you're paying for time. Mm-hmm. You're asking someone to come in, the generalist inspector to come in and say, I need you to look at this, and they look at it, they go, I'll probably be there 3 hours, it's $500. I'll be there for 4 hours, it's going to be $700. But if you get there and there's a whole nother detached garage, and it's frustrating to some people because they're like, it's right there. I mean, I can see it. It's right there. Can you just turn your head? And it's like, but I got to go look at it, and it's going to be in another 30 or 40 minutes. So you got to pay the time. You know, it's like working with an attorney. It's like, no, you asked me to look at this contract. You didn't ask me to look at that contract too. So it's usually on the inspector company when they're looking at the property, and to be specific. Okay. So we always ask, is there additional property? And we also pull up imagery. So we'll pull it up and go, hey, there's a big, mother suite around the corner of this house. Did you want us to look at that too? And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like, really? That's why you're buying the house. But it's like, that's interesting. You didn't know it existed? But so we would ask for that.
Dan, so something like a pool, like an in-ground pool, would definitely be obviously.
That would be an add-on. Yeah, that'd be it. If you were in Arizona, I know that Anna, we work with investors all over the place. I know you were out-of-state investor. There's certain areas, parts of Florida, much of the Florida, the Panhandle, parts of Galveston, Texas area, Arizona. And the reason I know all this is because I told you I do business coaching too for inspection industry. Those areas, they pretty much throw it in. It's part of their deal. It's one of their unique selling points. It's like, hey, hire us, and we do this too. So you just got to know where you are geographically if the pool is included. But usually anything that's added other than the traditional home inspection is added extra. Termite is extra. Pool, septic, VOCs, which is volatile organic compounds, extra. Why would people be doing VOCs? It's becoming more and more popular because there's so many man-made products and chemicals that are off-gassing, and people go in the house and go like, is that new carpet or something? Like, I smell like a glue smell or something. That's the off-gas. So people want to know what's going on there, so they'll have volatile organic compound testing. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Like I said, get curious. tell your clients to get curious. Is there anything out there you're thinking about? Like, what about these tiles over here? They look really small, and I looked online, and it looks like they might be asbestos. What do we do with that?
Yeah.
That's those kind of things.
Man, I'm gonna have to go to your class. There's so much. It
was great, and it was great. So Dan, we're getting close on time, so I just wanted to ask you, what advice would you give to buyers, first-time home buyers, people that are really hoping to get into a home, but they understand that people are waiving everything to just get into homes. I know it's a little bit tough, but is there any advice that you would say that you could give these type of buyers?
Yeah, I mean, I would first really, I wouldn't just go, I would ask the buying agent to say, hey, can you just confirm up that this listing agent's not even going to entertain contingencies, right? Just ask, right? Because sometimes they will. If the offer is an attractive offer and you can get the home inspection, you may as well ask for it. I wouldn't make the assumption because you've lost a deal already. Just get curious and ask the question. Anna will tell you, I spoke to them and they're not accepting those. But at least I asked. So I would ask. The other one I would do too is I would certainly, if I do have the opportunity to work with a home inspection company, I would just find out how they protect me and what do I get. Is there a guarantee? Is there a warranty? The guarantees and warranties are completely different. Okay. Warranty is I'm warranting something in the future. Mm-hmm. I bought a home warranty. I bought a vehicle warranty. So when I'm driving and the check engine light comes on, it's protected through this warranty, right? The guarantee is usually a snapshot of time. It's a performance guarantee. So, for example, at top to bottom, we say, hey, we have a 200% guarantee. If we do an inspection for you and you feel that we missed something significant, you can hire another company to go out there. They got to have the same credentials. And if they find something that we missed, we guarantee our work. And if they find something that we didn't report on, we will refund the money you paid me and I will pay for the other company. That's a guarantee. So I would be like, what is your guarantee? What's your warranty? Do you have anything different? And then also, it really makes a difference. Like when real estate agents, when licensing happened for them and when they happen for home inspections, a similar phenomenon happened. What that was is you had realtors that have been in the industry for 20 years are now equal on paper to the person that just got their license, that just walked out of the classroom. Because they say, I only want to work with a licensed realtor. Well, 30-year bet, 15 minutes.
Yep.
So you should be looking and say, hey, listen, inspection company. Like I'll have people call and they'll say, well, I shopped it and I was able to get Jimmy Dean over here to do it for 99 cents. I'm like, well, I just looked at Jimmy Dean, saw it's his website, and he's got one 5-star review, and he started his business 15 minutes ago. So I would really just look to see the credentials behind them, like what is out there from their experience, because I believe in the home inspection there's a lot of intuition that goes into it. Sometimes you go to a great doctor, and the doctor, as soon as Anna walks in, she goes, I know what's wrong with you. One leg shorter than the other, that's why your back hurts. It's like they just know, right? You walk in, they go, oh, I'm coughing. Oh, I know why you're coughing because of the fact that there's this allergen going out right now. That's why you're coughing. It's like that knowledge that comes with working with somebody who's been around a while. Like for TTB, we've done thousands and thousands of them. So we can pull up in front of the house and kind of give you an idea by just looking at it. Like, all right, this house has been maintained. This one's neglected. This has falling on the brick. You pay for that experience. You come in and the one ceiling is painted in the house, not the other ceilings. I got the feeling this ceiling above this is probably a bathroom. Let's go look.
It was probably water leaking.
Yeah, right. You go upstairs, you go, there's a sunken bathtub right there. I wonder if that's leaking. But if somebody that hasn't been doing it for a while, they walk by and this. I've always coached everybody. It's so hard to see things when it looks beautiful. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Because you're enamored by how it looks instead of saying, I have people when they want to onboard with me at TTB. I don't want anyone ever to think that I'm holding anyone back because of who they are or whatever. I want to know it's their skill set, right? So I say, you inspect my house, and we will grade you. And I know what's wrong with our house because we've had 20, 30 people inspect my dang house, right? So they go in. I just had a person the other day went and inspected. He wants to be an inspector for us. Came in, did the test. There's 108 things that they could find in my house, and he found like 26.
Ooh.
He's licensed. This is a person who is licensed, right? So you have to know who you're dealing with and what kind of experience they have. And I would just ask those questions. How long you been doing it? What's going on?
Yeah. Just like any business, I mean, and especially realtors, you wanna vet them before you decide you plan on moving forward.
Yeah.
And I have to say, top to bottom services, I've been using them for almost 4 years now. Everybody who's come out has been extremely thorough and very professional. So shout out to Dan and to his team. Dan, this has been awesome. Where can people reach out to you and to your team if they want to learn a little bit more about the inspection and the industry?
Or about your training.
Yeah, or about the training. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do a lot of By the way, we do CE training in your office if you want. So we'll come to your office and train. So if you want to do CE training, you probably just want to call me directly at 301-938-2878. 301-938-2878. Or send me an email at dan@ttb for top to bottom and the word services, and that's plural.com. And I can go out and do that. If they want to find us online, it's the same one. It's www.ttbservices.com. And you can order right down there. You can schedule everything on there right now. Construction, new construction, phase inspections, commercial inspections, the whole nine yards.
Awesome. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes, or Nico will. I say
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Absolutely. And our main number is 301-938-9100.
Reach out to them, buyers, investors, sellers. Reach out to get your home inspected, especially if you.
And Anna, reach out to me so I can get you a CE. Appreciate the opportunity. This was great. I hope that you have a lot of viewership. I appreciate what you two are doing for the industry and trying to educate, and I really do appreciate it because we should all be so thankful that we're able to make such a huge impact on people's fundamental wealth and just happiness. And real estate through investing can help you get to generational wealth.
100%. Yes. And that's the perfect way to conclude. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. Please like, share, subscribe if you found any value. And if you think of any topics you want us to touch, please DM me at ngarciaofficial on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna _realtor on Instagram, or just Anna Bialik on any other platform.
And thank you again, Dan, and tune in to the next episode, guys.
Yep. See you later. Yep.